And why is accountability very important when it comes to separation of powers? I mean, Dipogiso just highlighted that our executive, probably, ministers and assistant ministers, it will be 34, I believe. And our members of parliament, what I believe they're like, what, 64, 63, 67? Yeah. I don't know, they're about 63. So now that's 34 out of 63. And he rightfully mentioned or highlighted the issue, accountability. Can we really say that there are checks and balances in Botswana?
Yeah. And I like the fact that Otista checks and balances, because separation of powers, the whole idea, or at the core of separation of powers, why do we have separation of powers? Is so that there can be checks and balances. And so, mo cabineting, mo parliamenting, and so there really isn't the mechanisms to be able to have those checks and balances for a dinner robust enough to actually, perform the duties of, parliament is supposed to be able to hold the cabinet to account. It's supposed to be, holding them to account, ensuring transparency. They affect Botswana, decisions that are being made, the policies, how are they being made, or expenditure. So I think the fact that we don't have a very clear separation of powers, and the fact that the checks and balances aren't as robust as they need to be, it means that a lot of people tend to say our legislature is just executive just presents their ideas to legislature as a rubber stamp, but as the executive, they've taken decisions already, policies have been made, etc. And so they come to the legislature and they'll say votes are being taken, but in essence, we know already the direction that those things are going to go. And so I think it really defeats the essence of robust accountability, transparency, checks and balances, especially because you then have a legislature that is dominated by the executive. Then, the principles of democracy, then very similar reports of, okay, what is the strength of our democracy if the legislature isn't even able to hold our cabinet to account, and if there isn't that clear independence between the three branches of government?
All right, no, thank you for actually just clearing that part of accountability, checks and balances out. Now let's look into one of the reasons, or two of the reasons for separation of powers is actually also balancing of interests, right? And efficiency, in that you want, the particular functions belonging to the different branches and being implemented well and effectively. So how, when we have in our scenario where we have the executive dominating in a way, or having the dominant majority, how does that work against the balancing of different interests that are supposed to be discussed and debated in Parliament? Randy Pogiso, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think all of us know that democracy is all about the dominance of certain interests over others, because you use numbers to advance your interests and all of that. But then if you have the same people sitting in both the legislature and the executive, then that means they are going to advance their interests in both fora. And that that undermines the particular of that people would have been voted to Parliament to advance the interests of their electorate or their constituents. Now, if they are held in both institutions, e le gore ano go raya gore ba tshwanetse gore ba ye go dira tiro ya goromente mapakela motshegare bao ba ya go ira engwe. So go na le mathata a conflict ya interest gore where do they serve the best, because go na le gona gore ba bo ba, you know, they have to advance the aspirations of their constituents go parlamenteng. Ke gone go e leng gore a go irwa melao go lebelelwa thata gore the interests tsa the constituency, the advance your thata go in terms of policy and all of that. But then go na le one problem ya challenge ya gore ga o le mo cabineteng a go motho go hela mo go ena gore o challenge ditshwetso tse e leng gore goromente wa di tsaya. For example, ditshwetso tse e leng gore tabo e le gore di kgatlhanong le government policy o le a member of cabinet, o itse gore kana o romilwe ke batho ba e leng gore ba go romile go parlamente gore o yo go advance certain interests tsa bone. Let's say a minority in Botswana, where you are a representative of these particular constituencies that are concentration of minorities or the so-called marginalized groups. That's a line here where those people have to be probably subjugated, as you know, in the country. They would have probably been sent to do by their constituents. So this conflict of interest will always be there. As a problem, but ba mo parlamenteng go ba nna le mathata a go advance those interests. Le ba mo cabineteng gore motho mo cabinet o gona go dirisa dithata tsa gore mo cabineteng ba advance partisan interests kana sectional interests tse e leng gore they don't advance the popular interests tsa constituency ya gagwe. Wa bona gore ha re ne re na le yo mo cabineteng e le gore o advance tsone di sectional interests tsone tseo be re nna le o mongwe yo separate mo parlamenteng e tare yo le a ke ra ile gore advance tse di sectional tsone tseo e be maitse ba kopane le o mongwe le gore actually holding the aspirations of their constituents in parliament. So that conflict of interest is problematic to the issue of separation of powers.
Wow. Simologo, do you want to add to that? Because I hear you, it's like, you know, it's connecting with something that you are thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, and I think primarily the issue of democracy, you know, you are elected as a member of parliament by you know, in your constituency, you are going to then be able to represent that interest. You are also a member of cabinet. There's that conflict of interest. You know, you know, you know, you are representing, you know, hands out, parliament, you know, in our constituency, you know, and you know, in a sense, it's difficult. One in two different chairs. You know, you should have that impartiality to be able to make decisions, you know, objectively, impartially, when you are being pulled by, you know, or when you're sitting in two different bodies and they both have, you know, different things to advance. And I think especially then party interests also, we can't forget about the fact that party interests also have an influence in how legislation works and how the, you know, cabinet works and stuff. So I think we have to be very aware of how to level our governance and, you know, just as we look at, you know,